All right, so today we're diving deep
Yep.
into D-Day, specifically the American experience, Operation Neptune,
Right.
and we're working with an amazing interview
Okay.
with historian and battlefield expert Martin Morgan.
Great.
And this guy, I mean, from what I can tell, he's practically lived on those beaches in Normandy.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, some of the stuff in here really just blew my mind.
Oh, really?
Like, for example,
Yeah.
you know the Atlantic Wall,
Mm.
that supposedly impenetrable fortress?
Yeah.
It turns out it was pretty incomplete in Normandy.
It's interesting how much, we think we know about D-Day.
Yeah.
And it's really a lot of pop culture narrative.
Yeah.
But the real story is in the details.
Yeah.
The improvisation, the near misses, how things like weather almost derailed the whole thing.
Well, and speaking of scale, right?
Yeah.
Like, paint us a picture of how massive this operation actually was.
Yeah.
How many ships, how many troops are we talking about here?
So picture this. June 6th, 1944. A 50-mile stretch of coastline,
Wow.
fortified by German forces,
Yay.
about to be hit by the largest seaborne invasion
Great.
the world had ever seen. We're talking over 6,000 ships,
6,000.
150,000 troops.
Gosh.
American forces played a huge part in this.
Okay.
48% of the initial landing force.
Wow.
And they were tasked with securing Omaha and Utah beaches.
And it wasn't just us, right? It was a global effort.
Absolutely, 14 nations
Oh.
made up the Allied coalition.
Okay.
The U.S. ended up eventually as the largest military presence in Northern Europe,
Right.
but the scale of cooperation is really just impressive.
So, I mean, obviously something this big
Yeah.
couldn't have been planned overnight.
No.
When did planning for Operation Neptune even begin?
Late 1943,
Okay.
and this was initially envisioned on a much smaller scale.
Got it.
But as the Allies gather more intelligence
Okay.
on German defenses,
Right.
and as they grew more confident in their own capabilities, they extended it.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, how did they even keep something this massive a secret?
So,
Weren't the Germans suspicious?
to outsmart the enemy, the Allies launched a massive disinformation campaign.
Okay.
Think inflatable tanks,
Really?
phantom divisions, strategically planted misinformation.
Wow.
They created an entire ghost army
A ghost army.
to keep the Germans looking in the wrong direction.
So where did they want the Germans looking then?
Calais.
Okay.
It's the closest point between England and France.
Got it.
They wanted to convince the Germans that that's where the invasion was going to happen. And it worked.
Okay.
The Germans fortified Calais heavily.
So they basically chose the weak point in the defenses.
They did.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah,
But even with the best plans, right,
right.
things don't always go smoothly.
Of course not.
And we all know, I mean, the weather
Uh-huh.
almost derailed this whole thing.
It did.
Tell me about that like nail-biting moment.
Okay, so the initial invasion was set for June 5th.
Okay.
Massive storm hits the English Channel.
Oh, no.
Eisenhower has to make a choice.
Yeah.
Postpone,
Right.
risk the Germans discovering the plan,
Right.
or proceed
Okay.
and risk disaster in the rough seas.
So what did he do?
He postponed it.
Wow.
He pushed it to June 6th.
Okay.
And even then, the weather wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the tension,
Oh, my goodness.
the uncertainty,
Yeah.
with thousands of men already loaded onto ships?
Right.
Waiting-
Oh, it must have been a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And the weather wasn't the only obstacle?
No.
There were disagreements within the Allied command too, right?
Yeah.
Especially about the air power.
Yeah.
What was the main point of contention there?
So you had a classic clash of military philosophies.
Okay.
Some advocated for continuing the strategic bombing campaign,
Okay.
targeting Germany's industrial heartland.
Got it.
Others,
Yeah.
though,
Yeah.
argued for direct air support
Okay.
of the invasion,
Right.
focusing on disrupting the transportation networks leading to Normandy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how did they resolve this?
Eisenhower negotiated a compromise.
Okay.
Some air power was diverted to briefly support the invasion,
Right.
but the strategic bombing campaign remained the priority.
So many moving parts.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Rommel.
Yeah.
The German commander, right, who's in charge of defending the coastline.
Right.
Often, I mean, you see him portrayed as this brilliant tactician, like the mind behind the Atlantic Wall.
Yeah.
But if Normandy was chosen because its defenses were weaker,
Yeah.
how accurate is that?
Well, that's where historical reality clashes with popular perception.
Right.
The Atlantic Wall, while formidable in places, was far from complete.
Right.
particularly in Normandy.
Okay.
Remember that German propaganda film?
You mean the one with like all the concrete bunkers
Yeah.
and the massive guns?
Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That was filmed near Calais.
Oh, really?
A deliberate attempt to mislead the Allies.
Wow, so it was a bluff.
Let's just say they had a pretty good idea.
Okay.
Allied intelligence had been gathering information for months,
Yeah.
piecing together a picture of German defenses.
Right.
They knew Rommel was spreading his forces thin,
Oh, okay.
trying to cover the entire coastline,
Right.
and they exploited that weakness.
So those final days before the invasion,
Yeah.
the logistics of moving troops and equipment across England
Right.
must have been monumental.
It was. Picture southern England,
Okay.
transformed into one giant military camp, a
Wow.
hive of activity
Yeah.
as troops prepare for the unknown. The loading process itself was a masterpiece,
Really?
carefully choreographing the order
Okay.
in which troops would disembark
Right, yeah.
and storm the beaches.
Wow.
Then there were those long, tense hours spent aboard the landing craft,
Right.
crossing the English Channel in the darkness,
Yeah.
waiting for the signal to attack.
It's hard to even fathom the anticipation and the uncertainty and the scale of it all.
It was.
So this leads us to the moment of truth,
Right.
the landings themselves.
Yeah.
Let's start with Omaha Beach.
Okay.
Things took a disastrous turn there for the Americans.
Yeah.
What happened? Why were the losses so heavy?
Omaha became a brutal reality check for the Allies.
Okay.
They anticipated casualties, but the reality was far worse.
Okay.
The Germans, despite their incomplete defenses,
Right.
had strategically placed their firepower, especially mortars.
I've read about that.
Yeah.
They were like pre-ranged
Yeah.
to target troops seeking cover behind the shingle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They used the terrain
Okay.
to their advantage.
So it was
Yeah.
a killing zone on the beach.
How bad were the losses?
There's a story of a company
Yeah.
from the 116th Infantry Regiment
Okay.
within 5 minutes of landing.
Oh my gosh.
91 killed,
Wow.
65 wounded,
Wow.
leaving only a handful of men able to fight.
That's staggering.
And wasn't there an issue
There was.
with the naval artillery support at Omaha too?
There was a system.
Okay.
Naval shore fire control parties
Okay.
would land with the troops,
Yeah.
communicate target locations to ships offshore,
Right.
guide the naval guns.
Right.
However,
Yeah.
at Omaha, these parties landed in unexpectedly deep water.
Oh no.
Radios were submerged.
So they couldn't.
They couldn't call for support.
It's heartbreaking, these
Yeah.
men on that beach
Yeah.
facing that intense fire
Yeah.
without the support.
And it really highlights the importance of communication
Right.
and coordination.
In such a complex operation.
Yeah, and it really just underscores the unpredictable nature of war.
Right.
Even the best laid plans can unravel.
Right.
Sometimes victory hinges on seemingly small details,
Yeah.
like a radio that gets submerged.
Gosh, so Omaha really shows us the
Yeah.
unforgiving reality of D-Day.
It does.
Now let's shift to Pointe du Hoc,
Okay.
another really iconic location, where those rangers had to scale those sheer cliffs.
Right.
What made that so strategically important?
So Pointe du Hoc held a strategic position
Okay.
that posed a direct threat
Okay.
to both Omaha and Utah beaches.
Okay.
The Germans had artillery there,
Right.
capable of wreaking havoc on the landings.
Right.
The Rangers were tasked with scaling those 100-foot cliffs,
100 feet.
neutralizing the guns,
Right.
and establishing a roadblock to prevent German reinforcements from reaching Omaha.
I mean, scaling cliffs under enemy fire.
It's intense.
That's like a movie.
Yeah.
What kind of training?
So the Rangers underwent rigorous training,
Okay.
practicing with specialized equipment,
Right.
rocket-propelled grappling hooks,
Wow.
ropes to ascend those sheer cliffs.
Wow.
However,
Yeah.
on D-Day, they encountered a series of challenges.
Like what?
They arrived late.
Okay.
Several grappling hooks malfunctioned.
Oh, no.
They were forced to free climb under heavy fire.
Wow.
They were adaptable under pressure. But
Yeah.
the guns they were sent to destroy,
Yeah.
unbeknownst to the Allies,
Uh-huh.
the Germans had already removed them from Pointe du Hoc,
Really?
replacing them with decoys.
Decoys.
Timber covered in concrete,
Wow.
camouflage netting.
So they risked their lives
In a sense, yes.
for a target that wasn't even there.
Their mission wasn't entirely in vain, though.
Okay.
They still disrupted German movements, prevented reinforcements from reaching Omaha Beach.
Okay.
They faced intense counterattacks at nightfall,
Right.
were forced to retreat with heavy casualties,
Right.
but their courage and determination did have a significant impact.
It really speaks to how,
Yeah.
in the chaos, individual acts of bravery can still have those ripple effects.
They do.
Now, the 82nd Airborne Division,
Yeah.
their mission, right, was to secure those key objectives inland.
Right.
But their experience, I mean, from what I've read,
Oh, yeah.
it was anything but smooth.
From the start, it was fraught with difficulties. Due to last-minute changes to the drop zone,
Right.
navigational errors,
Okay.
many paratroopers were scattered
Yeah.
across the countryside,
Wow.
miles from their intended targets.
It must have been terrifying.
It was.
Landing in darkness,
Yeah.
surrounded by enemy territory,
Right.
unsure of where you are,
Exactly.
how to reach your objective.
And one remarkable story is Major Charles Johnston
Okay.
and his men.
Okay.
They landed far from their intended drop zone,
Okay.
stumbled upon the village of Grains,
Okay.
and made a fateful decision,
Okay.
realizing they couldn't reach their objective.
Yeah.
Johnston decided to make the best of a bad situation,
Okay.
fortified the village,
Okay.
establishing a defensive position.
So what started as a mistake
Yeah.
became a strategic advantage.
It did.
How did their presence in Grains even impact the operation?
Their actions, though unintended,
Yeah.
had a ripple effect on the whole D-Day operation.
Oh.
Holding Grains disrupted German movements,
Okay.
tied down troops that could have been deployed elsewhere,
Okay.
and bought valuable time for the Allies to consolidate their beachheads.
Wow. Talk about adaptability
Yeah.
and quick thinking.
Yeah?
But I imagine defending a village
Yeah.
with limited resources
Yeah.
against a determined enemy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that couldn't have been easy.
The fighting was intense.
Okay.
These paratroopers, lightly armed,
Yeah.
outnumbered,
Right?
facing constant German attacks.
Wow.
But they held their ground
Okay.
for days,
Wow.
repelling assault after assault,
Oh my gosh.
inflicting heavy casualties.
Wow. So their story really shows us that
Yeah.
sometimes the greatest acts of heroism aren't part of the plan, you know?
That's right.
They come from the chaos,
Uh-huh.
from improvising.
Exactly.
It's also a stark reminder, though, of
Yeah.
the human cost
Yeah.
of war, right?
Absolutely.
These sacrifices made by individuals who
Yeah.
just found themselves in these extraordinary situations.
And it's important to remember that D-Day was
Yeah.
just the beginning.
Right.
The Allies still faced a long and grueling campaign to liberate France.
Right. It's easy to forget
Yeah.
that D-Day wasn't a singular event.
It wasn't.
It was part of a larger,
Yeah.
much longer, bloodier campaign.
It was.
And we've mainly been focusing on the American experience,
Right.
but this was truly a multinational effort, right?
Absolutely.
What about the other Allied forces?
Oh, yeah. The British, Canadian, and Free French forces.
Yeah.
They played vital roles,
Okay.
landing on beaches codenamed Sword, Juno, and Gold.
Right.
Their sacrifices, their contributions, equally essential.
And I mean, what about the French resistance?
The French resistance.
Yeah.
Instrumental,
Okay.
disrupting German communications, gathering intelligence, sabotaging infrastructure.
Right. So they weren't on the beaches that day,
You know,
but their actions behind enemy lines were still crucial.
they're vital.
It's a reminder that even in global conflicts, it's often that local knowledge, the courage of ordinary people resisting oppression,
Absolutely.
that can make a real difference.
Yeah.
Now, going back to Eisenhower's decision
Thank
to
you.
postpone,
Right.
I mean, that must have been incredibly difficult.
Imagine the weight on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Thousands of lives.
Right.
The fate of nations
Right.
hinging on his decision.
Postponing meant delays,
Yeah.
risk of the Germans discovering the plan,
Right.
uncertainty of finding another window.
Exactly.
But proceeding in that storm
No.
could have been catastrophic.
Could have been.
So how did he navigate that pressure?
It's a testament to his leadership,
Okay.
his ability to trust his advisors,
Right.
weigh the different perspectives, and make that difficult decision
Yeah.
under immense pressure.
And even after the postponement,
Yeah.
the weather on D-Day
Yeah.
still wasn't perfect.
No, it wasn't.
Really shows you the adaptability and resilience of the Allied forces.
It does.
But victory, no matter how significant,
Right.
always comes at a price.
Right. Absolutely.
Can we talk about the human cost of D-Day?
The casualty figures,
Yeah.
a stark reminder of the brutal reality of war.
Yeah.
U.S. alone suffered over 6,600 casualties,
Wow.
thousands killed in action.
And that's just part of the story, right?
It's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Countless others carried invisible wounds.
Right.
The trauma, the loss, the horrors witnessed.
Every number
Yeah,
represents a life lost,
it does.
a family forever changed.
Yeah.
It's important to remember those who paid the ultimate price.
Yes.
Honor their sacrifice, make sure their stories are never forgotten.
Right.
But beyond the casualties, there's another aspect of D-Day that often gets overlooked, right?
What's that?
The logistical challenges of an operation of this scale.
Mind-boggling.
I remember reading about the Mulberry Harbors.
The Mulberry Harbors?
These artificial ports that they built.
They were incredible.
To offload supplies directly onto the beaches.
Yeah, these massive prefabricated structures.
Wow.
Towed across the English Channel.
Really?
Assembled off the coast of Normandy.
Wow.
Creating these artificial harbors.
Wow.
Allowing for the rapid offloading of supplies.
So it's like a testament to Allied ingenuity and determination that sometimes victory in war depends as much on the logistics and support as it does on the battlefield.
Absolutely.
Now, we've talked about the ground troops.
Yeah.
The naval support. Another key element of D-Day was air power.
Yes.
And the use of air power during World War II remains a complex and controversial topic.
It does.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, the Allied bombing campaign aimed to weaken German industry and military capabilities.
Yeah.
It also resulted in civilian casualties.
Right, it did.
Cities and towns were destroyed.
Yeah.
Innocent lives were lost.
That's right.
It's a difficult aspect of war.
It is.
To really grapple with.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to acknowledge those unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
Even when the ultimate goal is considered just...
It's a reminder that war is never neat and tidy.
No.
Even the most carefully planned operations can have those unintended tragic outcomes.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a bit and delve into the intelligence war.
Okay, yeah.
That was happening behind the scenes.
The intelligence war.
Yeah.
Absolutely vital to the success of Operation Overlord.
Okay.
The Allies invested heavily in gathering information about German defenses, troop deployments, strategic intentions, aerial reconnaissance, code breaking, human intelligence.
Wow.
They wanted to build a comprehensive picture
of the enemy's capabilities.
Exactly.
And they also went to great lengths to deceive the Germans, right?
That's the deception campaign.
Yeah.
Incredibly elaborate.
Like what?
Fake armies.
Okay.
False radio traffic.
Wow.
Planted disinformation through double agents.
Really?
All to create confusion.
Okay.
Misdirect German attention.
Right.
And achieve an element of surprise.
And it worked.
It did brilliantly.
So the Germans were completely caught off guard.
They were.
It speaks to the power of intelligence.
Yeah.
Deception, psychological warfare.
Absolutely.
But I mean, beyond the military applications, it also highlights the importance of
critical thinking.
Yeah, in everyday life.
Yeah.
I mean, we're bombarded with information constantly.
We are.
It's more important than ever to be able to question what we see.
Right.
Evaluate sources, recognize attempts at manipulation.
It's a lesson we can all take away from D-Day.
Right.
In a world where information can be weaponized, we need to be discerning.
Right.
Able to separate fact from fiction.
Amidst all the grand strategy, the large-scale operations, I'd love to hear some individual stories.
Oh, the individual story.
Of the soldiers who were there on those beaches.
Each soldier had a story.
Yeah.
A journey that led them to that moment.
What are some of the stories that have really resonated with you?
So many of them.
Yeah.
Each soldier had a story.
Yeah.
A journey that led them to that moment.
Yeah.
Some were seasoned veterans.
Right.
Others were young men.
Yeah.
Barely out of their teens.
Right.
All thrust into this crucible of combat.
Yeah.
The accounts of those who landed on Omaha Beach.
Right.
Facing the most intense resistance.
Yeah.
Filled with incredible bravery, moments of despair.
Yeah.
The sheer will to survive.
And what about the experiences of those who fought in the lesser-known battles, you know?
Yeah, those stories.
Like the paratroopers at Grains.
Right.
The Rangers at Pointe du Hoc.
They highlight the unpredictable nature of war.
Yeah.
The importance of adaptability.
Right.
How individual actions can have unforeseen consequences.
Right.
They remind us that history isn't just the grand narratives.
Right.
It's also about the experiences of ordinary people.
Yeah.
Caught up in extraordinary circumstances.
And we can't forget those who served behind the lines too, right?
Absolutely not.
The nurses.
Yeah.
The support staff. Those who contributed to the war effort in ways that may not have been as visible.
That's right.
But were equally essential.
They were.
As we commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day, it's important to reflect on the lessons of this event.
What are some of the key takeaways that we can apply, not just to understanding history, but also to navigating our own lives? D-Day offers a wealth of insights into leadership, strategy, the human cost of war, the importance of international cooperation.
Powerful and timely lessons.
They are.
And it's a story that continues to resonate today, right?
It does.
Inspiring us to strive for a world where such conflicts can be avoided.
Absolutely.
Diplomacy and cooperation prevail. And the sacrifices made on those beaches are never forgotten.
They should never be forgotten. And as we move further away in time from these events, it becomes even more critical to preserve those memories, those stories. You know, we're losing that generation that lived through World War II. So it's up to us to make sure their sacrifices aren't forgotten.
You know, it's interesting you say that. There's something so powerful about visiting those beaches, those cemeteries, those memorials. It brings history to life.
It does.
In a way that, you know, no book or documentary ever could. Have you ever been to Normandy?
I have.
What was that like?
It's humbling.
Yeah.
Standing on those beaches. Walking among the rows of white crosses. You can't help but feel the weight of history. The enormity of the sacrifice.
It's a reminder, isn't it?
It is.
Of the human cost of war, but also of the courage and resilience of those who fought for freedom.
That's right.
It also underscores, I think, the importance of education, of making sure future generations understand the complexities of the past.
Absolutely.
The sacrifices made to shape the world we live in.
We have a responsibility to learn from history. Not to glorify war. But to understand its causes and consequences, and to strive for a future where such conflicts are avoided.
This deep dive into Operation Neptune has really been an eye-opener for me.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
I mean, it's amazing how much more there is to the story than what we typically see in films and books.
And that's the beauty of history. There's always more to learn, more layers to uncover, more perspectives to consider.
It's a journey that never really ends.
Never ends.
Well, I want to leave our listener with something to ponder.
Okay.
What does the legacy of D-Day mean to you? How does it shape your understanding of the world? Of human nature. Of the enduring power of courage and sacrifice.
It's a question worth reflecting on. Not just on anniversaries. But as we navigate the complexities of our own lives.
I think you're absolutely right.
You know, facing our own challenges. Striving to make a positive impact.
I hope this deep dive has sparked some curiosity, inspired you to learn more. Maybe even motivated you to visit Normandy someday.
That would be amazing.
To experience this history firsthand.
History isn't just dates and battles. It's about the stories of individuals. Their choices, their sacrifices, their enduring legacies.
And those stories have the power to teach us. Inspire us. Remind us of the interconnectedness of human experience.
That's right.
So keep exploring. Keep questioning.
Keep learning.
The past is never truly gone.
That's right.
It lives on in us, shaping who we are.
And who we might become.